of September the 5th, 2013. I'm Joey Hargis, and I'll be presenting the cases for the board for review in today's public hearing. I would ask at this time anyone please turn their cell phones off or put them on silent or vibrate. Pretty much where this gentleman's sitting this way, you don't have a signal anyway, so you're just killing your battery because we're down underground from this point. But if you would please put those on silent so we don't interrupt today's meeting. The procedure will be to introduce the case record as the Codes Department has it. I'll present any site plans, photographs, maps of the properties involved in today's cases. I'll also present any letters that we've received in support or opposition to a case, as well as any correspondence that we've received from other government agencies. At the conclusion of my presentation, the applicants will come first to the table. I have 4 spots available for you, along with any persons in support. Then after the applicant speaks, if there's opposition present, the opposition will come next and present their arguments to the board. And then after the opposition speaks, the applicant will have a period for rebuttal. The board in their rules provides cases without opposition 10 minutes for the applicant to present their case. And in a contested case, that is cases with opposition, the board provides 15 minutes for each side of a case. So that 15 minutes is per the group. So if there are multiple folks that want to talk, you please divide up your time before you come up here. And would ask if there are multiple folks wishing to speak, don't one person hog all the time so your neighbors can talk as well. All section numbers that I refer to today come directly from the Metropolitan Code of Law in Title 17. Title 17 was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective January 1st, 1998, and applies to the entire jurisdiction of Metro government. I'll introduce and make a part of the record the entire zoning code, and will dispense from reading individual sections unless the applicant or opposition or board requests that I read those sections. The zoning code requires that these proceedings be taped. Therefore, it's imperative anyone wishing to address this board to come forward, give us your name, and then make your presentation. It should be noted that it's found if anyone's presented false or misleading testimony to this board that may have affected the board's decision, any approval can be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. The board will go through all cases set for public hearing today, and after each case, the board will then discuss and vote on that case before you. The board is vested with the power to act on the cases today as outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metro Code of Law. The code requires that 4 members of the 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. I currently have 4 members present. The code also requires that you have 4 affirmative votes to grant your application. I have 5 members present. Thank you. God, that's embarrassing. I'm sorry. There are 5 members here today. I can't count. So you have to have 4 of the 5 members present affirmative votes to grant your application. If by chance your vote comes out that you have a 3 supporting and 2 against, your case will stay on our agenda for the next 30 days. During that 30-day period, we'll hold however number of meetings that we hold in those 30 days. The members present are allowed to change their vote. The members who were not present are allowed to watch today's tape, review any paper records that were turned in today, and then become eligible to participate at the next meeting. And then they're allowed to vote. If still after 30 days no one's changed their vote and you still do not have 4 affirmative votes, your case is deemed denied by operation of law. The applicant or any aggrieved property owner may request a rehearing within 60 days of today's public hearing. Further, any applicant or aggrieved party may appeal this board's decision to Chancery or Circuit Court within the same 60-day period. But after 60 days has elapsed, this board's decision is final, and then no further action may be taken. If you're an applicant today and your case is granted, it is necessary for you to come and pick up the permit for which you've applied. You applied at the Codes Department office that started this process today. So an approval today is not the end of the cycle. You still have to pick up your permit, achieve any other sign-offs that you might need for your building permit application. But you have 2 years from this date to pick up that permit for this approval to remain valid. If you do pick up your permit within 2 years, your case is good forever unless the board puts a time limit condition upon it. If you fail to, you have to come back here and seek reapproval. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases were filed in proper order. Applicants were notified by certified mails required by the zoning code. All affected property owners within 300 feet were notified by first-class mail. A legal ad was published in the Tennessean as required by the zoning code. And before I begin today, I'll call, are there any elected officials present who wish to address this board? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none. I'd also like to, while I'm here, I'm going to call through the docket today. If there's any parties here that are opposed and I haven't spoke to on any of today's cases, if you wouldn't mind, please raise your hand. That'll give the board some idea about how long today's meeting would lapse and helps us as staff kind of prepare things. Is there any opposition case present on case 81, Mr. Paradise at 6125 Clarksville Pike? Case 81 on the first page? Okay. Seeing none. I do have an announcement. Case 82 was withdrawn by the applicant. So if you're here on case 82 on Battlefield Drive, that applicant has withdrawn his request and will comply with the code. The next case, case 2013-83, St. Matthews, 1700 25th Avenue North. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 83? Mr. Chairman, seeing none. Case 84, Crevewood United Methodist Church at 451 Hogan Road. Any opposition present to Hogan Road? Okay. Case 2013-85, Mr. Thomas Powell at 2209 10th Avenue. Anyone here in opposition to the case on 10th Avenue? Mr. Chairman, seeing none. The case 86, Greater Love Assembly Baptist Church at 1905 Formosa Street. Anyone here in opposition? Okay. Case 87, Ms. Angela Gore, the appellant, Salvation Army, the owner of the property at 3808 Park Avenue. Anyone here in opposition to the Park Avenue case? Okay. And finally, I've talked with one opposition on case 88. Are there any other parties opposed to case 88 that are present? Okay. We do have some folks here. Thank y'all. With that, the board does have a consent agenda. A board member reviews the record prior to today's hearing, and if in their opinion the applicant meets their criteria for the application requested and they feel that testimony in the case will not alter the material facts, they recommend the case to the remainder of the board for approval. I'll now enter into the record those cases that have been recommended for consent agenda, and although I've called for opposition, if there's anyone here has changed their mind or have walked in late, as I call these cases, if you would please raise your hand. And we'll hear those cases in regular order. The consent agenda was reviewed by Chairman Whitson, and he recommends the following cases to the board for approval on consent. The first case recommended is case 2013-81, Mr. James Paradise at 6125 Clarksville Pike, requesting a variance in the street setback to construct a new single-family residence. Again, last call. Any opposition to case 81? Mr. Chairman, seeing none. This is actually a request to reconstruct a residence on the property, essentially in the same location that was there prior. The next case recommended for consent, St. Matthews at 1700 25th Avenue North, requesting a special exception in setbacks in RS5 to construct a new 1,728 square foot addition with 84 seats. Is there anyone here in opposition, again, on case 83? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none. This case does conform with the special exception criteria listed in there. The planning department made some note about a sidewalk being required. They're actually an error. That's not required on this construction. In future constructions, it will be required, but as part of this one, it is not. And we've talked with the applicant about relocating a ramp on 25th to utilize the alley. And Mr. We're going to talk with Public Works on accessing that alley to get out. The next case recommended for consent, case 2013-84, Crevewood United Methodist Church at 451 Hogan Road, requesting a special exception in RS20 to construct a multi-purpose addition with a kitchen and elevator and to rehab the existing church. Is there anyone here in opposition again for case 84 on Hogan Road? Okay, seeing none. This case is recommended for consent agenda. The planning department's comments in regards to screening of the parking area, we will handle that on the permitting end and make sure they install that. The next case recommended for consent, case 2013-85, Mr. Thomas Powell, the appellant owner at 2209 10th Avenue South, requesting a variance in street setbacks and rear setbacks for garages in the R8 district to construct a new attached duplex on the property. Is anyone here in opposition? Case 85. Case 85 on 10th Avenue South. Mr. Chairman, seeing none. This appeal is actually brought upon the houses out there are constructed between 20 and 25 feet. Metro reclassified 10th Avenue as a collector, which established 40-foot minimum setbacks out there. And so they're essentially wishing to replace the home in its location there with a duplex on that lot. The next case recommended for the consent agenda by Mr. Whitson, case 2013-87 at the bottom of page 3, Ms. Angela Gore, the appellant, Salvation Army owner at 3808 Park Avenue, requesting a change of non-conforming use in RS5. Members, you do have a letter, I believe, from Councilman Holloman on this, supporting the case. If you didn't receive a letter, the board did, the staff did receive email from him recommending approval of this case. This case is recommended for consent, understanding that the proposed use under the code is will not increase the degree of nonconformity of the use on the site, and it will not impact the adjoining properties greater than the current use on the property. And those are the cases recommended for consent today, cases 81, 83, 84, 85, and 87. Mr. Whitson makes a motion.
Okay, so we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Okay, if you're here for cases 81, 83, 84, 85, and 87, your cases have been approved. You are free to go. The first case that we'll call to the table will be case 86 in the middle of page 3. Is the applicant present for case 86? Okay, come on forward then if you're the appellant. Do you have opposition present? Each half of this appeal, both the applicants and the opposition, will have 15 minutes. You guys are also welcome to stay if you want to. I'm just kidding. I would get out of here as well if you could. But you all will put 15 minutes on the clock. I'll first show the members of the board our photographs and site plans that were submitted by you all to our office. And then go through the sections of the code that we talked about on why we denied the permit. And then I'll turn it over to you all to present your case to the board. But you'll have 15 minutes to present your case. Over to the right of you on the ledge there is the clock. The clock will run, this for all parties talking today, the clock will run during your testimony. If the board stops and asks you a question, the clock's going to stop. They'll let you answer it. But once you kind of get back into testifying to this board, we'll restart the clock. For applicants, that time that you have there, 15 minutes, you will want to save some of that time to cover things brought by the opposition when they come forward. So we'll leave it to you on how much time you wish to reserve for your consent. If you get done with your speaking and the board's done asking you questions, we'll save the remainder of the time that you have for your rebuttal. With that, give me just a second, I'll bring up the photographs. Our first case today is case 2013-86. Let me read for the record. The Greater Love Assembly Baptist Church is the appellant, Edward Madry et al., owners of the property at 1905 Formosa Street, requesting a special exception for the use and a variance in the lot and parking requirements in RS5 to construct a new 40 by 60 church with 13 pews and 8 rows, 8 seats in each pew, referred to the board under section 1716-170 and 1720-030. The appellant has alleged the board has jurisdiction under section 1740-180, items B and C. The subject property you see here is bound in red in the RS5 district. The aerial of the property of the area shows the subject property, again, bound in red. adjoining single-family homes nearby. There is a church facility across and at the corner of 21st and Formosa, and you see the aerial photo there. I'm never sure of the dates of these photos, but I'm guessing that this was taken on a Sunday, just looking at the cars that were there. Before you use the site plan submitted by the applicant, we denied the permit based upon it has to come to this board for a special exception use anyway. Two additional items which we denied on were based upon the seating in the proposed sanctuary. The zoning code allows churches in residential districts, and I framed this on the screen based upon the lot area of this lot. You can have so many seats in your sanctuary. The code kind of reads it in reverse and says, based upon the lot area, you can have this many seats, but we're talking about the same thing here. And let me read that section, because you guys, I don't think, have been exposed to that section of the code before. Religious institutions are an institutional special exception under Section 1716-170. And religious institutions say that new facilities, which this would be a new facility, land area shall be provided at a rate of 5/1000th of an acre for every seat in the sanctuary / assembly area. In areas considered by the Board of Zoning Appeals to be predominantly developed and zoning and where assembling land to satisfy the site size requirement is not practical, the Board of Appeals may waive the minimum site size requirement based upon a determination that the proposed facility can be designed and operated in a manner which would not adversely impact abutting properties or the surrounding neighborhood. So the code sets forth you have to have a certain size lot based upon the number of seats, but the code specifically grants you the ability to waive that requirement if you feel, again, it says that based on a determination that the proposed facility can be designed and operated in a manner that will not adversely impact abutting properties. So yes, it's a variance, but you all are able to waive that if you find such to be presented today. Secondly, based upon the number of seats that they've told us in their plan, they are required 15 parking spaces. Inside the urban zoning overlay, there's a parking space required for every 6 seats in a sanctuary or equivalent worship space. If we're dealing with a religion that does not use fixed seating, it's an equivalent worship area. So based upon the number of seats proposed here, they're required 15 spaces. The site plan as submitted shows 6 with a handicap out on Formosa, and then 5 spaces coming in off the alley to the rear. This is looking into the subject property. Again, it's a vacant lot today that's out there. I'm at the north end of the property with Formosa, standing in Formosa, looking toward the alley at the rear of the property. And a photograph of the adjoining properties on either side of Formosa. 2 homes to the east and the immediate one to the west there. And then another view of the subject site. The parcel across the street in the bottom left photograph is kind of just east of directly across the street here. I'm going to refer back to the aerial photograph because I think it shows more of the neighborhood than my ground shots do. Okay, guys. You do have information submitted to you by Public Works and Planning Department. Comments are there. That's all the information that our office has for you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you all. Again, you'll have 15 minutes to present your case to the board, and the parties opposed will come up after the opposition gives their testimony at this time. But I turn it over to you all, and if you would, please identify yourselves. Once you're done identifying yourselves, we'll start the clock, okay?
Baptist Church.
James McLean, my wife.
Judy Dotson, a member. So we'd like to start out by saying that in terms of the request that the variances be granted for the church, for building a church on this particular lot, I'd like to say that this lot actually belongs to my family. It was owned by my grandmother for many, many years, and it remains in our family. I have an older sister that also has delegated part of her portion of the ownership of this property to the church already. So the church is part owner of this property as well. And the church has been implemented since 2010. We started out in 2007 in a Bible study in our home. And in 2010, we established the church as Greater Love Assembly Baptist Church. And starting out in the home, and we've moved from the home to a hotel, and we currently are leasing some space near this location. And it stands to reason that with ownership of this property already being owned by my family and the church, that this would be a starter location for the church. The variances, it is a small lot. It's a very small lot. There are some mature trees that also would impede the development of the property. So at this point, this is why we're requesting that the variances be granted to implement a church on the property.
Tell me about your neighborhood meeting and how that went and who showed up.
The neighborhood meeting, initially I did 2 rounds of notifying the neighborhood. Initially, I did a walkthrough and hand-delivered the initial notices on a Monday afternoon. And then a week later, I did a certification and sent out 45 letters that were mailed out to all of the persons on the list that we received from the board, from the Zoning Commission. And the meeting was set for the 24th of August on on the 24th of August at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That we were there in the property where we currently have a location at church, and there was no one that showed up.
Have you talked to your council person about this proposal, and what did they say if you did?
I have not.
Who's your council person? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Okay.
Isn't 21 Edith Langster? Is that right? Or is she?
She's part of Vanderbilt, and I'm not sure if her district covers this area near Meharry or not, but it could.
I mean, it says it's 21, so.
Well, I think that is Edith. Yeah.
Okay.
How many members do you have in your church?
Currently, we have 23.
Okay. I think I know the answer. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you? I didn't mean to. Because the planning staff's complaint and then really the variances are all built about size. And I think that 23 number is a very important thing. Obviously, you're just hoping to grow to 104. I mean, could you live with 52 or?
We could. We started out with 6.
Okay. Because I think the primary concerns are just how big it'll be on the lot and then the parking, because one of my concerns is I think there are only 6 spaces, and when I thought of 104 seats for 6 spaces, I just didn't know where they would park. Would you be willing to build a smaller church in the beginning? So that it's at 52 as opposed to 104? Or?
Yes, we would give that consideration. Yes.
Okay.
I also noticed there was a lot across the street. Is that for another church or a building? Is there a way that you could possibly get some spaces from them?
I have not spoken with the members of that church, but I believe it is owned by the church across the street.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the 2 main concerns are the size and parking. And is it just trying to squeeze too much into a smaller space? And when you look at the aerial photo here, it looks like there's not a lot of street parking. When activity, during if that was a day when the church across the street was having their services, there's just not a lot of room. And so that was a concern from the planning department. And the planning department did recommend. I don't know if you've seen it, but they said they recommended that we not approve this as it was submitted because they said it's the lot's too small, and there's not enough parking. They had a little bit of concern, and I don't know that the board shares it completely, about it not being on a corner, preserving the residential character of the neighborhood, and I think that's important, but that their main concerns, as I read it, were the lot size and parking. And so, basically looking at, from everything I've seen, I kind of share that. So we've done a good job, I think, as a board of trying to help people figure out how to make things work. But we're looking at, what do we do? Because you got a lot of stuff going into a very small space. So I think that was, not to speak for Chairman Whitson, but I think that was where he was getting at, to say, what could you live with? Could you live with 52, or could, what it is? Because once we grant this as a special exception, it can always kind of be a church. So it's a pretty serious consideration for us to say, no, we're going to change it from being residential to being a church.
And the side note to that is that doesn't foreclose your adding on in the future. I mean, if you hit that 52, you would definitely need to come back and revisit us.
Okay.
Or if you are beginning to exceed 52, you'd need to come back and visit us. But I can't speak for the whole board, but it's a heck of a lot easier to allow a church to grow as opposed to having a new church just kind of be too big for the lot. And my other question, which you've answered perfectly, is why this lot? But free means a lot in this world, and so I now understand why you're so eager to go there.
Although looking at this overhead site, I do see, we talked about on-street parking. There does appear to be a substantial amount of on-street parking on Formosa. Now, albeit these are taken spaces, it looks like they're about 40, 20 on each side of the street. But of course, the other church, it seems that, I guess their members are using it, but if that's their lot next to that building, it still seems like they have some capacity there too, as well.
The Planning Commission also talks about orienting the building to Formosa Street, and all access to the park can be taken from the alley rather than entering from Formosa Street. Can you accommodate that?
I'm sorry, could you clarify?
He wants to get the parking to come in the alley instead of come out the street.
Yes.
And orient
Yes.
the building toward Formosa. Probably
Yes.
could move the building maybe a little closer to Formosa and pick up a little more parking in the back, possibly. So.
Yes, we could accommodate that.
Ma'am, are your regular hours of worship on Sunday?
Yes.
And would that be the only day of the week? Or do you know?
No, that would not be the only day of the week. We do have Bible study that we hold services on Wednesdays. And when we're having events or other worship services and revivals, it is during the week in the evening most of the time.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions, or should we let the opposition come up and save time for rebuttal? Okay, you'll have the opportunity to come back, and you'll have 10 minutes and 22 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the opposition can come up.
Hello, panel. My name is Nicholas. Do I sit down or stand up? Nicholas Dorrell. I actually live in the house. If you can see, a little to the right there. So my property runs on deed from the alleyway to Formosa. The traffic there, the two houses directly in front on the, I guess it would be north side, but the high side of the picture, are both rental properties, it appears, at least from what I can always gather from the people that come and go from there. They all park on the front of the street. Actually, all of these houses use front of the street parking on Formosa Street. Two of them on the left bottom do have rear parking. One's a fireman, uses his van, keeps it in the rear. The rest of them park in the front. That alleyway on the bottom side of the picture has a steep drop-off. That's a Masonic Lodge when you ask what that large parcel is right there underneath there, or maybe it was across the street, but underneath it to the right is a Masonic Lodge. So all that is like a community area they use. But that alley has a pretty steep drop-off. So for people to be able to use, even for swinging around, where your red line ends, my fence begins, and it goes all the way down that alleyway. Not to say they couldn't still get in there, but it's a tight, with the drop off of the street and the way that the alley is, rear parking, and that fence line right there coming off the what you can see from on the left of the Masonic Lodge, but coming directly down from it is a thick tree line, even on the corner of the alley. They've actually recently marked some of them for cutting down, but it just doesn't allow for easy access in and out. I've tried to put a gate on there, and it's still difficult on my side to pull in and out from the alleyway, and I got a large gate for trailers. The bottlenecking, it's horrible on Formosa. There's no good in and out from that way. The corner house on Formosa to DB Todd actually has horrible visible eyesight. Codes needs to come in there and cut actually the bushes down or have them cut them down. But you can't see when you're leaving the property as it is. It starts coming over the hill as you come over DB Todd, and as you approach that area is a semi-blind spot. And I think with the additional traffic, it's really just not good for the community. The area has been, there's investors, there's other homeowners that I've seen move in. Underwood has had 2 new people move in the last few months, so it's good to see people purchasing the properties compared to just renting. And it's starting to happen right around this area, and it's something that I'd like to continue seeing. But I'm not against a church by any means. I hate opposing a church, honestly, but I don't think it's the best use of land there. I do at least propose a swap, if you would. On the corner of that property, there is on DB Todd and in front of the market, I have a 50 by 150 lot. It sits on the corner of an alley. It's on DB Todd. It would be probably the same dimensions. I'm not certain the width of their lot, but just so that y'all could hear it, I'd be interested in swapping the lots if there was something that would work for them, if they're interested in that. It's within 400 yards of the property. It would work for them. But otherwise, I'm against that location being a church. I think the hours of use, the Sunday is nice, but even throughout the rest of the week, that road is still pretty packed. I don't think I have anything else, but let me just kind of glance real quick at my notes.
I'm sorry, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Because I kind of missed it. Where is the location that you're offering the church?
If you look at the bottom right building on the DB Todd, which is the red road on the bottom, across from it, go down to the right. There's a lot right there. It runs a 50 by 150. You see the alleyway? Mm-hmm. There's a duplex that sits on the left side of it, and then there's a lot there. It is a buildable lot. I've just inquired about it. I was going to put a building up on it, a residential house. I haven't applied for anything yet, but it's something in the works. Meantime, there's 1 tree on the property. Otherwise, with the exception of having to cut 1 tree down, it's a lot less foliage compared to the lot they're looking at. My property, when I sit on my porch, backs up to their property. There is technically a house in between there. I don't even think y'all took a picture of it when y'all were looking at your pictures earlier. It's kind of a little shotgun style small house. There's a garage house apartment I have behind my house, and then there's another property actually in between there and that property, but she lets me use her backyard. So actually my fence is on part of her yard as well. It's her fence now. I guess I gave it to her, but it goes all the way to that corner. But they're open backyards essentially, and having a church back up to it would be a lot different than having a house there with somebody's backyard as a play area or something else. You're talking about 6 cars coming and going off a very quiet area otherwise.
Well, so if I heard you correctly, you're talking about a corner lot swapping for the one in the middle of the street, which is one of planning's concerns.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make your deal, but are you just talking even Steven?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want the land so I can have a bigger backyard, and I think that they're valued pretty close to the same.
Okay. Have you got anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Let me ask you, so what is your real opposition to the church?
The traffic. I think that there's an issue coming out of Formosa. Again, I essentially on deed own from the corner of Formosa to the alley, and everybody that will be coming out of that way is in a blind spot. It's already difficult to get out of. I don't think the parking is going to be good. I use that area to walk regularly and can see it, especially on Sunday. That church does use that parking. It might have a parking lot, but it uses that parking lot as well. I don't think adding another 15 cars, 16, is going to end up helping that street on Sundays. You got a required space for a reason. It's because they need that many parking spots. I mean, if they have more than the pastor, the people that are the core of the church, they're going to be pretty much at an overflow parking then on Formosa. You can't park on the alleyway. Like I said, the ramp, it's just not accommodating, not at least directly right there touching the concrete. If they would allow them to park in the field, that'd be one thing, but I don't know that situation if they're allowed to or not. I do know that Formosa would be too packed with both churches in that area. There's a bottleneck effect that would happen, and I don't like it.
So you feel like potentially 15 cars on a Sunday would be a real traffic problem for you?
I think 15 cars on the street when you already have 4 that sit across from the street. You have the one that sits to the left of it. The lady there, she usually parks in the driveway, but again, it's not. It's the combination of all the people, the people across the street can easily have 5 cars right there on that street just for those 2 houses. The church, again, going back to the Sunday, it's just overloaded. And it's not necessarily the Wednesday that's going to be an issue. It's going to be the Sundays that are definitely the issue. And again, it's the rear parking. You're putting a commercial building in the center of a residential area. It's just not conforming. I mean, the neighbors to the other side have a beautiful double lot. I'm sure that if they were, I'm not sure what I'm not going to speak for somebody else. I don't know that they would like to have a car space back there, and I don't even know if they are, ones that would want to come and oppose it or not. But I do know that most people wouldn't want a car lot or a car parking lot in the rear of their fenced-in backyard. I mean, it's just...
If that be the case, I mean, the land that you're proposing to swap, I mean, wouldn't they have the same parking problems?
I think that it's a commercial road that gets a lot of volume traffic, and that it would be more subject to a zoning change in the future as far as going to a commercial. You have commercial buildings up and down DB Todd compared to Formosa, which is very much a residential road.
But there's no parking on DB Todd. That's the whole point. It's like, so if they were to build a church on the lot that you own, where would all those people park?
I'm not saying, sir, that was an excellent solution to their problem. I'm saying that the bottlenecking and the traffic is a problem that I would rather address first off. And if they do want to trade properties, I would be open to discussing it with them and then doing it. It's not that mine is a better property. I'm just trying to offer a solution and not necessarily offering just a complaint. I'm trying to provide something.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. And then maybe if we could have the members of the church come on back up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I'd first like to say thank you to the gentleman that offered this property. If that property were larger, and there are other types of situations that I think that we would run into, but he did say that it was 50 by 150, and this property is 75 by 150. So the property that we have is larger than his property across the street, as well as there's more to this property than just it being property. It is in my family. So with that being said, the other thing that I would like to say is that, again, I don't think that the traffic with the few amount of cars in our small church is going to be cumbersome to the neighborhood or cumbersome to the parking issue on the street or coming in and out of the alleyway. If we move the church up, the church building, center it more on the lot, or just make the accommodations that we need to make to accommodate 52 as opposed to the 104, and as we said, a starter location. So making all those accommodations and those modifications, we certainly would do that, but we would much prefer to do it on property that we already own.
Can I ask a question of Joey or Bill or someone? What I've heard is they are willing to consider a smaller footprint for 52, and would they need to, just by definition, bring you back different drawings?
Well, for the permit side of it, this procedure, there, if you are okay with that, you can amend it down. And they couldn't come here and say, hey, we were going to build 105 seats, now we want 200. You can't do that. You can always scale it back here. But we would need submittal of new site plan, new to the fire marshals and that sort of thing.
Joey, I have a question too. what are the, if it were 52 square feet, what is, is there a parking requirement met at 6? I mean, I guess my, you know what, and I don't know that answer matters as much as my thinking is that the special exception part of this request is something that makes a lot more sense than the variances. And so I'm just saying if we
it
approve
would.
the special exception to say, you know, you can put a church there, but gave no variances, they'd have to conform to code. And I just didn't know, I think you'd said the code was 52 for the maximum seating.
Yes.
But
The
for parking.
The 6 spaces would cover 52. Once all the use-the-O discounts for sidewalks and bus routes are factored in, 6 would cover a 52-seat sanctuary.
Well, ma'am, this is just me being protective. We've asked you to basically cut your proposal in half, and you very graciously said yes. Would you like 30 days to consider that and come back and see us? I mean, because I just, that's a big proposal change, and I'm protective by nature. I just don't want you to agree to something today you can't live with. Would you like 30 days to consider it? And maybe 30 days to talk to the gentleman to see if something can be worked out? I mean, sometimes deferrals help everybody come to a meeting of the mind. And it would definitely be your choice for a deferral, just like it's your choice whether you can live with the 52. I'm just trying to make sure you have plenty of time to consider it.
Thank you.
Let me ask another question. Have you had like a surveyor or civil engineer look at that based on what the opposition was talking about, access from the alley? That could actually be accessed from the alley without?
It's a double gate, been there for years. I mean, it's 10-foot gate in the back. They've been using the back for years. So it's already back there, and they've used it ever since the house been there, I guess.
So you don't see a problem with access from the alley? Okay. I just wouldn't want to see us put a condition on there that you couldn't meet, you know.
And I guess that, you know, the deferral is something that we have used a lot when there's a contentious, you know, request. But if we were to, you know, just approve the special exception to say you could put a church in, probably the Planning Commission's recommendation that it, you know, front Formosa, I think that's where the conversation may be headed. I don't know. You never know what happens when everybody discusses. You can always come back to us, but then I think you have to reapply and pay another fee and that kind of thing. If you defer, then you can think about it and work it out and come back and you're first in line next time. So it's really your choice, but I think that's what we were trying to figure out.
What would be the date for the return or the deferral? What would be the next meeting?
Truthfully, we could make it kind of truthfully, we can kind of make it whatever you want, but 2 meetings from now would be, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but October 17?
October 5th and 19th are October dates.
Hold on. My calendar may be wrong, but I've got those on both on Saturdays.
Okay, 3 and 7.
Okay, great. So yes, ma'am, I think we could bring you back really in the 3rd or the 17th
Of October?
of October.
Okay. We will accept the deferral.
Okay.
We'll take the deferral, and we'd like to come back on that 3rd of October.
Okay, and we'll put you at the first of the agenda.
So at 1 o'clock, you'll be the first up.
All right.
And with that deferral, you could come back and have a look at repositioning the building to orient to Formosa Street access to parking in the back and look at those things. So,
All right, all right, we will.
Okay, and so I think I need to or somebody needs to make a motion, right, from here
Okay.
to make them first. If they defer, then they're,
Yes, I'll make a motion, but I'd like to compliment both the church and the opposition. Y'all were exceedingly reasonable on both sides. So anyway, we often don't see that. So we are very appreciative. With that, I'd like to make a motion that this case be deferred until October 3rd and that it be placed on the first of the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion, got a second? Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I can finish it, but I do have a question. What are this is a code question to some degree, just so I can at least ask them further afterwards. What's the minimum setback that y'all would allow from the side of a property? It looks like that building wants to be 40 feet, and it's not like they're going to have a garage or anything on the side of the property, so just theoretically wondering if I know they don't want to swap.
Yeah, why don't we deputize Joey to work through that, or not work through it, talk about it with both sides. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I do. But would 5 feet be something that the city allows in cases like that?
Not without a variance. The code required for
15 is what's required.
Okay, so we've got a motion, we've got a second, we've got all in favor? Any opposed? Sorry. All right, it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, this is down the street from Robert Churchwell School in that neighborhood kind of near Fisk University. And that little Masonic Lodge is where my great-great-grandfather belonged to that lodge, not in that location now. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I immediately like the swap.
Never had that offered before.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get this next case underway. I'll step away for a moment if you want to talk with the prior case. But the next case today and final case on today's agenda is case 2013-88, St. Mary's Coptic Orthodox Church, the appellant and owner of the property at 1943 Dabbs Avenue, requesting a special exception and a variance in street setback and skyplane in RS10 to replace the 9,464 square foot burn section with the two-story Sunday school classrooms at 6,831 square feet on each floor and a gymnasium of 70 by 120. Total square footage of the new structure, 22,062 square feet, with a building height at 30 feet, referred to the board under section 1716-170, 1712-020 and 030, and 1740-660. Item D. The appellant has alleged board would have jurisdiction under section 1740-180. Have the applicants present? Okay, please come forward, sir. We do have opposition present. Again, I talked before we began. Do you have any other persons that wish to speak in support of the case? No, please come forward, Mr. Sloan. Okay, no other parties here. For the 5 members here in opposition, again, I talked about as a group, you all have 15 minutes. If you'll work out before you come up how long each person wants to speak, we'd appreciate it. Let me show the photographs first and the site plan submitted by the appellants. The subject property is located on Dabbs Avenue and also actually fronts on the terminus of Dabbs Court. This is in the RS10 zone district. To orient you, just slightly north of here is Interstate 40, Briley Parkway, not 40, Briley Parkway. The Knights of Columbus Center Drive is there. This is the former churches on the property. Again, there was a fire in this portion of the church facilities burned recently. The sanctuary area that's located here was saved, but the portion at the rear was demolished, as you'll see in the photographs. The new structure being proposed to go over essentially the same footprint as the prior structure. Again, it is footprint-wise larger than what was there prior. This is looking sort of to the northwest of the property, that sanctuary piece of the building which you saw in the aerial photographs here. So that picture is looking sort of to the northwest. The new addition would be in this area here, again facing to the west of the property in the parking area that exists today at the southern part of the property. This view is along Dabbs Avenue facing west, and then the driveway that connects, as you saw in the aerial photograph, this driveway here that connects the property out onto Dabbs Avenue is this photograph. The church owns this structure. As you notice, the damage or the melting of the siding of that structure from the fire that occurred. And then again, looking into the subject site, this photograph essentially looking at the end of where this addition would be located. That storage building that we just looked at would be just to the right of this photograph here. Storage building addition here, and then another view of the overall site. You should have in your packets, hopefully delivered to you all, it showed the site plan and elevation I believe they submitted to us. If not, I'll get that passed around to you. That's the case records we have it. The appellants in opposition have 15 minutes to present their testimony. I'll turn it over to you all first. Again, as you saw in the prior case, whatever time you have remaining, you can come up after the opposition speaks.
Joey, I'm sorry, can I ask one just factual
Please.
question? In the planning department analysis, they say that using the existing footprint maintains the massing on the site that had previously been established. But did I understand you to say it's not the same footprint?
At least it appeared to us that it was slightly larger than the prior footprint, but I'll let the applicants cover that. It looked like, comparing the aerial photographs and the site plan, that the overall coverage is greater than there. It is, as far as the street line at this location, the same footprint, but it's a little larger coming south and slightly west to the property there.
And did you say what the variance was in the setback, or the street setback they were asking for? And then how much, what is the sky plane issue?
You're right, I did not mention that. The required setback for this addition is to be 40 feet from Dabbs Avenue. They're requesting 30 feet. The desired height in this zone district, maximum allowed is at 20 feet because it's residential zoning, and they're requesting to be 40 feet at that setback line.
Okay, I think you can proceed. I'm sorry, you may need to introduce yourself for...
My name is George Hanna. I'm the deacon in the church and a board member. Just building the same footprint, you'll be just additional. You'll be a total of 33.633 square foot. And this you're going to be just educational building. The church itself, nothing happened to it. We just demolished the educational building, and it's going to be just used for classroom, Sunday classrooms, and gymnasium. We don't have gymnasium before. We just adding the gymnasium. That's the gymnasium. It makes a difference with the square footage. And that's going to be much better for the neighbor. Going to be a brand new building. I think they're going to increase the value of everybody. We're looking at $4 million project in the neighborhood.
Sir, you're here in support. Would you like to say something? Or?
Well, I'm a consultant. The building that they have, the area footprint is about 9,600. So the area is, the footprint is going to be bigger than old building, and it's going to be a 2-story now. And gymnasium is going to be 1-story high ceiling, but 2-story classrooms.
Do we have any questions? Okay, then y'all have, unless you would like to say something else, you've got 13 minutes and 52 seconds for rebuttal.
Okay, I'd like to wait till we hear the rest of...
No, that's right. The opposition will get to speak for 15 minutes, and then you have 13 minutes and 52 seconds.
I save that for after.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I feel like I probably need to disclose that I'm familiar with the consultants there, but like a long-term, known him for a long time, but would not let that interfere with a decision I would make. So I'm comfortable with sitting on this case, do whatever I need to do. So,
thank you. Opposition, you'll have collectively 15 minutes. Okay, you can start in any order you want if you would just each introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Helen Schultz. I live at 1909 Dabbs Court, just a short distance from the church.
My name is Howard Helton. I live at 1907 Dabbs Court.
My name is Mario Salmeron. I live in 1904 Dabbs Court.
My name is Don Wall. I live directly across from the church on Dabbs Avenue, 1944.
I'll start. I'm going to make this short. Until an entrance exit was opened into the church property, very few, if any, issues existed for what used to be a cul-de-sac dead-end street. That's Dabbs Court. The entrance exit was created when the Korean United Methodists bought the property and a house near the property, which they demolished. Around 2 years ago, they outgrew the church and sold the property to the Coptic Christian community, who established St. Mary's Coptic Orthodox Church at 1943 Dabbs Avenue. Soon after the problems began, we contacted our councilman, Josh Stites, regarding these issues being created by members of this church. First of all, the members used what was once the cul-de-sac, dead-end street, as their entrance to the church. Many of them speed down the middle of the short street, carrying little about who is on the street, who is attempting to exit their driveway, etc. There are children on bikes, there are people who are walking in the neighborhood, and occasionally, unfortunately, a pet gets free. When leaving or returning to my home, I've been forced to move off the street because they tend to drive down the middle of Dabbs Court and Dabbs Avenue. Several times I've had to honk in order to prevent a possible head-on collision or scraping the side of the vehicle. This is the thing. When they have services, they park on each side of that cul-de-sac, that dead end, what's supposed to be a dead end street. They have parked in the driveways of the residents there. They parked in my driveway, his driveway, and Mario's driveway. And when asked to move, they're very rude and disrespectful. One time I asked one to move from my driveway. He spoke to me in his native language in a very rude and disrespectful manner. They park in front of the fire hydrant and around the hydrant on what, and I hate to keep repeating this, but it's supposed to be a dead-end street, a cul-de-sac. And if we happen to have a fire, there would be no way that the fire trucks could get down the streets when they're parked there, let alone get to the fire hydrants. I talked to the firemen about this when the church burned, which I'm very sorry that it burned. But we've called the police on many occasions for situations that have occurred on the cul-de-sac there. They've responded as much as they've not responded. The church purchased 2 duplexes on the left side of the cul-de-sac, what used to be, and now they're using their yards, the yards of those duplexes, as a parking lot. They have driven across the property that we own. They have absolutely no regard for the fact that this is private property that we own, and they continue to have disregard and lack respect of those of us who are living there. I spoke to one of the residents of one of the duplexes who's a member of the Coptic Church at one time, and I suggested to her, why don't you all find a place to park and bus your parishioners in here? That would be the ideal solution. They don't have enough parking space. If they do this expansion, they're really not going to have enough parking space. We've not had any trouble since the sign for this appeal has been posted. They're not parking on the street, so I don't know. You can decide what you want to about that. The primary issue is the parking space. That is why I'm here. We don't want them to continue parking on our property, in our property, driving across our property, up and down the street to where there'd be no way you could get out at certain times. So
would you tell me what you mentioned a duplex? Will you point out on the overhead map, aerial map, you see which?
Okay, I live in the first duplex. It is my property. I own it. Then he lives in the next house, and those 2 duplexes right there at the very end of the street are the ones that they purchased. Yeah, right there. 1905 and 1903, I think, are the addresses. But they bought that property, and now they use it as a parking lot.
Those are the ones in the circle?
Right before you get to the circle.
Okay.
Just start right there, that one, and then the one on the right of that.
Those 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
as I said, live at 1907 Debs Courts. I've been living there for 49 years. It's been real nice up to about 4 years ago when St. Mary's got the church. They started, like she said, parking, made our Debs Court a parking lot, actually. And my property joins the two duplexes. They were parking in the yard, and as they got ready to leave, they would come out across my property. I put up no parking sign, no trespassing, and they still would drive around and come out my yard. So I went back and got more and put out where they couldn't drive around them, and they drove over. And but basically this past spring, I had to have a fence put up to keep them driving across my property, which cost me almost $500. With the new addition of proposed building, they said it's going to be larger and they're going to take up more parking space. I just can't see how, and we need to be relieved, and I would respectfully ask that Debs Court be made back into a cul-de-sac where they can't enter from that place. And I thank you for letting you hear my voice.
Well, can I ask just a question? Is there still an entrance off of Dabbs Avenue? I mean, there evidently was.
Yeah.
Oh, there is an entrance off.
That's the original entrance.
That's supposed to be their church entrance.
Okay. That's. There are two off of Dabbs Avenue. Okay.
But they use Dabbs Courts more than they do Dabbs Avenue, I think, to go in, to enter and come out. And they just park everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, well, in 2008, I buy the duplex on 1904 Court. And that time it was so quiet. It was very quiet, the Court strip. Sorry, Court. When they buy this church, start very noisy. I don't have a problem with the church but this church is not typical like Sundays. No, they have 3 weeks every day, and it's a lot of cars getting into the church, and they don't have too many parking lots for that. And also when they finish, when they have a reunion or food over there, my duplex is right there next to the entry, and every Sundays I had to pick up from my yard like trash, like empty bags, like empty cigarette bags, empty soda cans. I mean, it's just very difficult because my daughter, she can play now, and it's very dangerous. Now it's very dangerous, that court over there. So that's all. Thank you.
First of all, I want to tell you something that happened last Sunday night, about 8 or 9 o'clock. I was at the house, and Patty called me. Now, the lady over there is my next-door neighbor. She's lived in that first duplex next to me in 1944. The 4 duplexes at the top, she's the one next to me on the right, and then that large triangle thing is my property. So they called me. Her husband was out there watering the tomatoes. As usual, on a Sunday evening, there were people everywhere, cars everywhere. But he was right out next to the road on Debs, and he heard a bunch of teenagers, boys, laughing and cutting up. And he walked out to the road and looked down in front of my house. I have a large Kiefer pear tree. I have a lot of fruit on the property. And there were boys from this church climbing on the fence and pulling pears and throwing them on the ground. 15 or 20 pairs that I saw there. Now, it's not, if they were hungry and they act like they're starving, if they were hungry, I wouldn't have cared for them. I'd give them some pears. But these are pears that don't even ripen until November. They're canning pears. So I was very upset that Mr. Garcia said he saw them, just they would reach up and laugh and jump up on the fence and grab the pear and throw it down. It was like a show. So he hollered at them, and they took off running and making. He didn't know what they said, but they apparently cursed him. He doesn't know what they said. So they ran back into the church. Now, this happened when they first moved over here. And I complained to the priest or whatever he is, the pastor, and he told me I was lying, that their children would not do that, that they were disciplined, and it was the boys in the neighborhood. Well, I saw them. They were boys with white shirt. They had on church attire, and they ran back in the church. It was the church. So now, I'm going back to last Sunday night, I went over there, and I tried to talk to the pastor. He wouldn't come out of the sanctuary and talk to me. He refused. I waited 15 or 20 minutes, and finally a peon came over and said he was designated to go with me and look at my complaint. He went over there, and I showed him the pears. He said, we'll be back in touch with you. He never apologized, never said anything, and no one has ever called me, although they have my number. They don't care. They don't care that these people are upset and have lived here for 30 years. They come out of the street drag racing. We saw them pull up beside one another on Dabbs in front of her house and take off spinning gravel going back down Dabbs Avenue. They go around that curve, and they're new to this country, I guess, and they don't know how to drive. Now, when the Koreans were there, they parked at an angle. The police came over. They invited me over, and they showed how they were going to park on their side of the street at a 45-degree angle. That means the car can pull in, and if he pulls in at an angle, his front door can open in front of the other car, and it's much more, you can get a lot more cars in there. So I tried to tell them that when the first night they tried to do this, and they couldn't do it. They can't go at an angle. They'd have 5 or 6 teenage boys trying to give directions as to how to park the car, and then they gave that up, so now they park just perpendicular to the fence, and they will park 15 feet away from it in front and right up next to it in back. They can't make a right turn and pull in there, even with people hollering at them and tell them. It's a circus. We sit there and laugh and watch them try to park. But the bad part is there's 5 or 6 of them out there trying to, and like he said, they're there every damn day, and you can't even drive down Dabbs Avenue when they're there. They don't care. They sit there and let the people that are going down the hill sit there or go back around. It's really discouraging to have these people with the attitude. Now, like what I told you, the Korean people were there. They were very polite. They parked on their side of the street, and when it finally got so big they needed more space, they sold it to these people. So they came in a place and knew it was too small, and now they want to expand and even cause us more heartache. We're all senior citizens. That place was built in the 50s, and I moved in there at 86 to retire, and now it's just so congested. They aggravated it by before. These people didn't have anything to do with that, but when they built that Kaplan Institute, which is that that building on the right with the air conditioning, the gray roof, when they built that, they put the exit on Dabbs Avenue down the hill. So we have to deal with that. They come in and out of there 2 or 3 times a day. Sometimes it takes 15 minutes for me to get out of my house on Dabbs Avenue. Now, that's not these people, but the Metro let them do it, and now Metro is considering letting them expand this thing to where we'll just be choked out of we can't. It's just, you'd almost have to live there to understand what a problem it is.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Ma'am, can I ask a question? Who is your council person?
Josh Stites.
Have you contacted him?
Yes, I have.
Because we're really not the enforcement arm of Metro, and a lot of what you're saying is enforcement of existing rules, to be perfectly honest. And So anyway, you have contacted Mr.
Yes, I
Stites?
have.
Has he gotten
Yes, sir.
back to you?
He
or-
got back with me. His grandfather had recently died, so he didn't respond fully to what my concerns were. I wrote him the same day that I got the letter. So,
Okay, because just as an FYI, I mean, if anyone off of this board calls any of the enforcement arms, they're going to say, who? But that's not the case with Mr. Stites. Because a lot of what we've heard, I don't mean to, but a lot of it's enforcement of nature. So anyway, I just wanted to, I guess.
yeah, I understand that. Our main concern
Oh, no,
is
no,
that
I get your concerns too.
Okay.
I'm not trying to deflect
Okay.
it all. I'm just
Okay.
trying to say as a future reference.
I also contacted at one time the Parks and Traffic Commission, never received a response from them, sent them email and a letter, snail mail.
Could I add one thing? Look at the parking at Kaplan. When they first moved over there, when they came here, the Arabs, they took that over. They parked there, and that thing is full. Beside their church, that thing is full and running over, and then they crowd Dabb's Court and everything else. But look, the parking behind that building, it's more than the church. And then that area there, half of it is Kaplan's and half of it's mine. That landscaped area, they trek up through there. They have paths. They throw Coke bottles. They throw every kind of trash there. I go down there and pick it up. I have a crepe myrtle bush that's right there where my drive comes in. They stomped it down. They don't give a darn about, they're not courteous people. And there's too many of them. It's just night and day between the Korean people and them. And they just are smart to you. One more example I want to give. When they first came over here, they built a tower between the school part and the church. And now behind there is grass, and you can see the 5 Bradford pears. They brought dirt in there, and there was mud everywhere when they constructed this. They left nails, thousands of nails on that ground. So with the mud and the rains, it was in the spring, they would park there and fill that up. The nails would stick to their tires until they got out on the asphalt in front of my house. And then it would quickly come off as soon as they hit a solid thing. I had a flat tire. She had a flat tire. The neighbor 2 doors down had 2 flat tires. I went out on the street and collected a bag of them of 8 or 10 screws and nails and caught them when they were over there and looking out in front. Some of the owners, I don't know if it's him or not, but I showed them that and tried to tell them what they were doing. They told me it didn't happen. They called me a liar. They told me none of this was true. I was a troublemaker. They wouldn't discuss it with me. They have never done anything to say, well, we're sorry we're causing problems. They're such a bad citizen, but part of it is because it's so many of them. Again, I ask you to consider that. They fill up that Kaplan parking lot every time they come over there and overfill it. And I don't know if Kaplan knows about it or not. But they trespass across. I have about a 50-foot stretch there, and they trespass along there and tear down my shrubs. I'm contemplating building a fence, but I shouldn't have to do that. They should be out somewhere where they've got more room. So I'm asking you, I'm a disabled Vietnam vet, and I retired here to stop it.
Okay, thank you, sir. It looks like y'all are out of time, so we'll invite back up the church. Thank you.
Just one real quick question. Did the previous occupants of the church use the Dabb's Court entrance? Has that always been an exit? That's just always been there?
No, it hasn't always been there. There was a house that was bought at the end of the street. The Koreans bought it, and that's when when they made the exit into the
that's all.
Exit or 2 exits on the other. On the tail, there's an exit and an entrance. And they won't let them come in that entrance where that little storage building is. They make them come around the Dabb's Court. Thank you.
I'd like, first of all, to apologize with all that what happened. Some of them we are aware of it, some of them we don't, was a surprise. But most of it, I will say, we talked to Mr. Josh Stang, the councilman, and he was with us. Anything he direct us to do, we done. As far as parking, as far as even the schedule, we was in touch with him, and whatever he asked us to do was very honored, and we done it. We can solve all this problem. Actually, the gymnasium, they're going to solve all the problem. The reason we're going to have the gymnasium for the kids to play, and that's going to solve all the neighborhood area. We have no problem to close down Deb's Court. We're going to close down. We have another place to go in and out with a very good traffic flow. We are not increasing the member of the church. The member of the church is still the same. We're increasing the building just to have the kids have more playing and more place to flow. But as far as cleaning, we do have in the new plan, we do have a speed pump in the new building. We have a lot of trash containers. Most of the people, he's right, they are newcomers to the country. They are not accustomed to the tradition is different. There's culture shock and language barrier. That's what the educational building is going to educate everybody how to be built in or blend into the society. We are willing to compromise. We are purchasing another house just to make more room for us, and we have the closing in a couple of weeks. In the house we purchased have plenty trees and pears. I don't want to jeopardize the whole church. I don't want to be here when the church finish. I'm over 6 years old. We're building for the newcomers, for the new generation, but I feel like the house is going to be more space for everybody and more fruit, if that's what. But I don't want to jeopardize the whole thing because 2 kids, 10 years old, kids is kids. I mean, sometimes you cannot control them. I mean, but we're going to supervise them as much as we can. We're going to try our best. We heard the concern, and we promise we're going to be on top of it.
How long has your church been there?
4 years.
4 years?
Yes, sir.
And who did you buy the building from?
From the Korean Methodist Church.
Okay. And how many members do you have right now?
250.
And what days of the week do you all worship?
Most of the heavy day will be Sunday morning and afternoon until 3 o'clock. After 3 o'clock, everybody's gone. During the week, is a lot less facility or less activity. It will be Wednesday and Friday. It is just a very small amount of people they gather together for liturgy, but the heavy traffic will be Sunday, half a day.
So if I heard you correct, you said that you will prohibit access to your church from Dabbs Court. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And will you put a gate there? I mean, how do you keep people from...
Absolutely. We have a fence in the plan. Our plan, we have a fence. All this issue is going to be solved 100%.
Is that a permanent fence? I mean, or a gated fence? I mean...
No, that's a permit fence around the property, but should be a gate to get in and out during the activity.
On Dabbs Court?
Dabbs Court will be closed.
Okay.
Permanently,
Okay.
yes, sir. I'm sorry.
And then I don't, on the plan that I see where it says existing shed I don't really see that as another driveway. I see an existing driveway over there where the sanctuary is that you can see on this map, but where you have that exit that you see there on Dabbs Avenue, I don't see an exit there on the new plan. Are you still going to have 2 entrances and...
Yes, sir. You're going to be in Dabbs Avenue to entrance and exit.
So there'll be a driveway where that existing shed is, and the existing shed will go away?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever explored, I mean, it sounds like your congregants are using the Kaplan parking spaces anyway. Have you ever explored a formal relationship with Kaplan and then maybe a bus running from Kaplan to your church so that they're not walking across people's yards?
For right now, they allowed us to park there. They have no problem because that's what the old church used to do, and they are welcome us anytime. We never have a problem with them, and it's a walking distance.
There doesn't seem to be an established path or anything that people just kind of cross that medium at any spot?
You will be when we purchase a house.
There'll be an established route?
You'll be a close enough or clean pathway. We'll do whatever it takes to have the people back and forth without affecting the traffic flow. You'll be blocked up. We'll make sure we get good traffic flow. But we have the church and the college. They allowed us to park anytime when you have any activity. And I didn't see whatever they said. It's happened. It didn't happen. It happens sometimes, but we're going to eliminate it. We're going to keep it down to the minimum, and probably want to stop it like we promised Mr. Schaefer before.
Did you mention that this edition is going to be classroom?
Yes, sir. You're going to be a Sunday classroom.
Sunday only?
No, English classes. We're going to have English class just for people to learn English.
And what would the operating hours of this classroom be?
It'll be just 1 hour during the week in the afternoon. Any activity don't take more than 1 hour because we lose them after 1 hour. They play before, they play after, but they're going to be a good gymnasium to just absorb all this energy. They're not going to be in the street anymore. And the reason they are in the street because there's no building. The building is being burned. But once we put them in a nice building and we have the gymnasium, everything equipped for the kids to play, that's going to be much better than staying in the street because it takes a lot of time to manage to bring all the crowd to the church, get them off the street and bring them to the church. It happens, the fire happens, but I feel strongly when we build it back up, you'll be a lot safer. To the community, to the neighbor, to us, to the kids.
Joey, I'm sorry, I have a question about the parking. And if this were to have been a brand new church that's, I guess, assuming the existing building is about, 6,000 square feet, say, and adding on 33, so say about a 40,000 square foot facility, what would the parking requirements be?
The parking for religious institutions are only upon the seats in the sanctuary. That's it. The rest of the space, fellowship halls and Sunday school rooms are not, there are no parking required for any of that.
So for that existing church building, I counted 91 spaces. There might be plus or minus if I didn't count right.
Yeah, the plan that they submitted actually says there are 89 existing spaces and then new proposed parking layout 91.
Oh, well, I'm glad I counted correctly.
You're good.
But that would be enough for that existing sanctuary.
That's based on a seating capacity of 364.
They're not asking for a parking variance, so I would assume that.
No, sure. And from our standpoint, what the parking that's there is for the sanctuary, and the original sanctuary obviously was built under a prior zoning code, so it would be vested at where it is. What does interest me that I did not know in testimony is this Dabbs Court access. I don't recall the board approving that prior, which you all have the authority to close.
So what you're saying is we would have to approve the entrance on Dabbs Court for the use of that church.
Yeah, I cannot, and I was sitting back here with Stephen looking through offline at what we have. I don't have any record that this board would have approved the removal of a house and a ramp cut on the court. I know in churches where we do have that, not necessarily this membership, but prior boards were very hesitant to allow ramps onto back streets. They would want it channeled on the main street.
And I guess this was a cul-de-sac too.
It was. If the prior churches purchased one of these homes out here on the cul-de-sac and demolished it and wanted to put parking or ramp, they have to come here and ask for it. And I have no record of that current. Now,
Yes,
let me put an asterisk by that. I am here, not in my building. I have limited access to our electronic records, but from what I can see here, I don't have anything.
Do we have any other questions?
I want to get I want to get clear on this height. What is the sky plane? Is that one of the variances? Going from 20 to 40, why such
It's going to be
a,
about 30 feet.
excuse
It's
me?
going to be about 30 feet high, the maximum 30 feet.
It's going to be one story only, it's not going to be two? Or
The
what?
gymnasium is going to be 1 story, and the classroom is going to be 2 story, attached to the gymnasium.
So I guess I'm confused. So did you all ask for 40 feet? Where did Joey's 40 feet get? I mean, I see a 32-foot.
Yeah, it's 32 to the peak. I'm sorry, that 40 was the setback portion that's
Okay.
encroaching off the setback off of the
Okay, so
dam.
32. And I guess, the only thing that I'm kind of struggling with, is the whole parking plan, and it's rare. We've had many churches want to expand, and we've had neighbors that come and express concern, but I can't say we've ever had any as passionate and really as upset as what we've heard today that I've heard in the last 2 years. And so that is a concern. I mean, it's nice when people are good neighbors and they all get along. And so I do think that the parking plan is a pretty serious consideration, even though it's not a variance you're seeking, but it does raise, the issue is raised when you are building, almost 34,000 new square feet.
Yeah, we are not adding anything to the church. The member is still the same member. We're talking about the kids of the member, to the family. We don't gonna even touch the church. The educational building is the only thing we do. Educational building, the one to replace the one is being burned down. As far as the parking space, everything's the same. For the matter of fact, we're adding more parking space. The way we have it now, we used to have 89, now we have 91. We're adding a few parking spots. Plus the house we purchased, you're going to get another parking. The closing in 2 weeks, if everything went okay, we're going to have more parking spots because we don't going to build anything else. We're just going to have some more traffic flow. And the two cases they create all this problem. They've been suspending for 30 days from the church. They cannot come to the church. They cannot be serving, and they've been punished. The priest was
Who's being punished again?
The two cases was fighting with the pairs, or they pulled the pairs.
Okay.
And the one generating all this anger and upset, and they've been punished for 30 days. They cannot come to the church. And the priest at that time, he was in the middle of confession. He cannot leave. We bring it to his attention, but he say afterward, I'm going to go after I finish. He was in the middle of the confession, and he didn't want to leave. People crying was problem, and try to solve family problem, and start going looking for pairs, the problem. But he said, okay, at the end of the night. And what happened at the end of the night, by the time he went there, was nobody available to talk to him. But we apologize, we're sorry, we acknowledge the problem, and it's not going to happen again.
Have you had a neighborhood meeting?
We did, yes, sir, and nobody showed up. We did have a nice reception. We sent a letter to the 33 neighbor, and nobody showed up. We ate all the food.
So there's just no dialogue between the church and the neighborhood, it sounds like.
We invite them, but they didn't come. But we will be happy. We went there, and we feel like we are not really welcome to knock in somebody's door. We did it a couple times in Thanksgiving. We tried to give turkeys and try to build a relationship. Obviously, the kids sour the relationship between us. And hopefully when we build the educational building, that's going to be much better. We're going to invite everybody, and hopefully we get back to the better relationship. We don't want anybody to be upset. We are a church. We worship God, and we there. Nobody really work. Everybody volunteers, except the priest is the only one he has salary at the church. There is no personal really benefits to anyone. Everybody's just go there to serve.
I hear the fair issue as one issue, but I don't know how to resolve the issue about the parking and the encroachment on the neighborhood and the lots and the blocking of the street. So What assurance can you give the neighbors that you have some solution for that?
The college, we have a good relation with the college. They let us go park there. Any house around the neighborhood, when it's available, we purchase just for the parking. And we have a couple houses right now for sale. We're approaching one, hopefully in 2-3 weeks max. Hopefully we'll do the closing. We agree with the price. And once we purchase it, we'll leave it just empty, just to make sure the traffic flow will be much better than it used to be, and utilized for parking.
Sounds like you're growing pretty aggressively.
Activity, not the member. The members are not growing because we do have 6 churches, Coptic churches in Nashville, and our bishop he's not believing large member in the same church. When the members start growing, he rather have another church instead of one church and gathering together in just a big amount of people in a small church. The amount of people is not going to be increased.
I may be missing something here, but okay. I've heard you say that we're going to block the entrance off of Dabbs Court. And when I look at Kaplan and your existing parking, that's way more than 250 spots.
Yeah.
And so would you be willing to announce to your membership that parking is either in this lot, your lot, or Kaplan's lot?
Sure.
Okay.
And none on Dabbs Court, nothing from your membership.
Dabbs Court will be closed, fence, nobody have
But
access.
no one to park there and then walk around. That's what we're saying.
It's going to be a long walk
Okay.
for them. They have to finish Dabbs Court, go to Dabbs Avenue, and walk another 300 feet to get into the church. I don't think the people
But are
are
you
gonna
willing
do
to say
Yes.
park in Kaplan?
No
Because
parking.
Kaplan's not
Sure.
the most convenient either, but.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I agree. It seems like with 250 members, and even if you had only 2 people in a car, you just don't have a whole lot of, with that Kaplan space, you don't have a lot of need to park in the neighborhood. So it makes me wonder, are you just driving a whole lot more cars? Are there a lot more people? Is the neighborhood described as the parking plan, just disorganized? There's not enough education and in terms of where people park and the flow, and because it looks like to me, just from the aerial map, there's plenty of parking for a 250 member church.
Sure. And our goal, 100% of our congregation will show up on Sunday, but never happen. I mean, if we have 60%, we say, hey, it's a good day. Usually 40, 50. I wish everybody show up in Sunday service. But when we have 250, we'll be lucky if 150 showed up on Sunday. But when we have occasion and some events, yes, everybody showed up for a party, but not for prayer. That's any church, I guess.
That's pretty typical, right?
Yes.
I want to ask our legal counsel there, what authority do we have, if any, to limit or restrict the parking on the Dabbs Avenue?
With regard to, well, first, the notion of blocking off the current opening there on Dabbs Avenue, because as Joey Hargis explained earlier, that was Dabbs Court. Sorry, I think I said Dobbs. Because the authority was never granted to open that as an access into the parking lot, it's appropriate for the board, if the board should so choose, to close that back off because it was never properly approved. As we've heard from the applicant, there apparently is a distinct plan to do exactly that with fencing. To the broader question of restrictions you can place with regard to parking, there are some limitations. However, given the applicant's expression of a spirit of cooperation toward managing those parking issues, I think that you can, in fact, place the conditions regarding Dabbs Court that we just discussed. But also, once we start to get off the property owned by the applicant, there are limitations as to what we can do with conditions of requiring, for example, requiring them to reach an agreement with the folks over at Kaplan with regard to use of their lot, or requiring them to make announcements to their congregants with regard to the parking arrangements. But nevertheless, there's that which you ask and that which you require under a condition.
Can a condition be that they're not supposed to park on Dabbs Court?
To the extent that parking on Dabbs Court would represent violations of the Metro Code, parking in spaces that are not designated as parking spaces for street parking, there's that, which of course would basically be saying you'll comply with all the local laws with regard to parking. However, I think that I'm not sure that could rise to the level of a properly issued condition from the board.
But just as an old council type myself, I will say that I think I properly heard him agree that they wouldn't, and I think that gives the councilman all types of moral authority to go in and remind them of that agreement. So. Do we have any other questions? Okay. I'm sorry. Sorry, I spaced. Then we're going to close the public hearing. You can leave the table, and we're going to discuss it now.
I am sensitive to the needs of the church, and I'm also sensitive to the neighborhood and the problems the neighborhood is encountering. So if we can find some mutual resolve, which we always try to do, I would be willing to go along with the expansion, but with some severe limitations on the parking thing.
I completely agree with you. I do hear the church that if you can push your kids offer your kids the gym as an alternative, that keeps them out of the neighbor's yard. So I think that's a productive improvement. And then I am almost adamant that we shut down that Dabbs Court entrance and then ask them to only park at Kaplan, because that's a lot of spaces. And I'm not sure I see a lot of ways to help Dabbs Avenue, but at least the Dabbs Court part, I think we would have a better situation than we do now.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that it might be worth some discussion on how Dabbs Court is closed in terms of fencing, and I think a gate isn't acceptable because a gate can be opened on Sunday, but I think it needs to be in appearance and in practicality a permanent closure unless it's brought back to this board to ask to be opened and used in the way it's open to used now again, if that made any sense.
Or if there's some reason, and this site has obviously already suffered a fire, if there's within the fire code, there's a reason that needs to be accessed. I don't know if that's true or not.
And the potential closure of the cul-de-sac as well, not just the Dabbs Court, but the cul-de-sac. If that were legally opened by the city or whatever, if not, then it should be closed, I would think. But I guess that would go to the traffic and parking, wouldn't it?
No, well, unless I'm misunderstanding, I think the only opening from Dabbs Court, which is the cul-de-sac, into the church is on church property. So I think if we're going to require them to put up an immovable fence, then we will be shutting back the cul-de-sac, I think. I could be factually wrong, but I think
yes. We're not closing the street. We're just closing their access to the street. Yeah.
But I understood the church to say that they also own 2 duplexes also on Dabbs Court, and we're not restricting any access or parking in those areas.
Our code the zoning ordinance would prohibit them from utilizing those duplex lots as parking for this church.
Okay.
Now, as parishioners living there, it's fine, but you can't come out and park all over your front yard just because the church owns the lots. They're not allowed to use it as off-site parking.
So we don't have to do anything. We're not addressing that issue, then that should resolve itself. I thought I understood the opposition to say that there was quite a bit of parking taking place in those 2 duplexes.
I do think John had a good point. If we block off that entrance, people are going to be less eager. But I am on board to require the church to announce that all parking that's not in their own parking lot be at Kaplan. I mean, and then at least we're giving the councilman, some tools to go back with, and especially, I do think that's a telling point, Joey, that just because you own the houses doesn't mean you can go park 20 cars there. So.
But I thought I heard the church say that was part of their reasoning for buying the houses, the property, to use the parking. And as a matter of fact, they have a closing on one in a week. That's not for that very reason. So.
Well, I heard that too, but I think that would be a word to the wise that they're about to violate the law.
Not without coming here and seeking approval from this board to utilize it as off-site parking. There is a procedure to do that, but it's not been asked by the applicants in this report.
So they can talk to you about that.
I have a very complicated motion, so anyone feel free to friendly amend as much as you want. I would move that the board approve the special exception use permit because all the requirements of MCL 17.16.150, and at the same time, subject to the conditions I'm going to go through, I would move that the variance in the setback and the variance in the height be approved as well because of the odd shape of the lot. But it is distinctly with the conditions that the entrance on Dabbs Court be permanently shut with an immovable fence of at least 8 feet in height. And I would also make it a condition that the church announce that all off-site parking needs to be at Kaplan. And I think that's the end of my motion.
Would you also think about, as they close off that entrance to Dabbs Court, that the street cutout be removed and landscaped, or is it?
I think that's a heck of an idea. I like that idea. Okay.
Excuse me, do we put a time limit on that? To be done by?
We can handle that on the construction side, make it before we issue occupancy for the building that occur.
Okay, so essentially,
I think a clarification was it is not Dabbs Court that is being closed by the fence, but the cul-de-sac. Correct.
Say the entrance from Dabbs.
I think that is Dabbs Court. It's their entrance onto Dabbs Court. Okay. Does that make sense? Yep.
So that it didn't misinterpret or misread as a Dabbs Court itself.
No. We're not going to.
Correct. Y'all,
we're not going to do that.
Definitely lack the authority to close it.
Just like all those
we're not doing that.
alley closures you used to do when you're in the council, right?
Exactly. Okay, so I think essentially we've got 3 conditions: closing the entrance on Dabbs Court with at least an 8-foot fence, which is immovable, removing the cutout and replacing it with greenery, I'm sorry, better than greenery.
No, the fence, you said 8 foot, but is it not a see-through fence? It needs to be a.
I'm really very open on all this.
On that? I don't know that I have a.
I haven't got an artistic bone in my body. Y'all tell me what to do. An opaque fence is fine by me. Okay, so an opaque fence that's at least 8 feet, remove the cutout, replace it with landscaping, and then the church is further required to announce that all off-site parking will be at Kaplan. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
Who was the second, Mr. Woods?
It was Dick.
With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals has approved the request with the conditions as stated, and the board is adjourned. Thank you.